Hello there, you're listening to the Box Office Show. I'm Ryan Hill, and once again, I'm without Dylan Johnson, but I will still be talking about the box office numbers from last weekend and the box office predictions for this upcoming weekend. And then I will be having a conversation with my friend and fellow MFA feature film student, Tolulope Ogunrinde, about two of his favorite Nigerian focused films, The Breath of Life and The Mother of George, and he'll give us a very in-depth, insightful breakdown on the history of Nigerian cinema. All right, we're going to dive straight into the box office breakdown for March 28th to the 30th. A Working Man is in first place with 15.5 million, beating out Snow White with 14.3 million. The Chosen, Last Supper, the first of three parts of season four, I believe it is, of The Chosen. And they always put their episodes in little chunks and put them out there in theaters, and it always cleans up. In this one, of course, Last Supper, quite a major event, and they're going to have it going through Easter season. So very smart of them, and I believe it's their first time debuting over double digits. So a very smart move. The Woman in the Yard, 9.3 million, and Death of a Unicorn, 5.7 million, rounding out a top five of a lot of new entries. Princess Mononoke with 3.8 million in its re-release, getting quite a lot there, beating out Captain America: Brave New World, 2.9 million, Black Bag, 2.1, Mickey 17 with 1.9 million, and the Novocaine rounding out the top 10 with 1.4 million. As for the upcoming weekend, April 4th to the 6th, the Minecraft movie is going to make waves at the box office. There were rumblings of perhaps an underwhelming performance for the Minecraft movie that maybe it was only going to get 60 million, 70 million. A little bit of a spoiler. It came out a little while ago and definitely blew all those expectations out of the water. It's one of those like Top Gun Maverick situations where the predictions for the weekends prior to once the preview started happening are going to be smaller than what the second weekend gross is going to be. Like this is that type of massive hit. So it'll be one for the record books for sure. Let us now head over to my conversation with Tolu and Nigerian cinema. All right, and now I am back with Tolulope Ogunrinde. Tolu, thank you for coming onto the show.
Hi Ryan, thank you so much for having me tonight. It's great to be a part of your podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. I'm very thrilled that we were able to make this happen. It's one
Yeah,
that I've been wanting to do for the longest time, but we've both been so busy making our films, our respective films, that it's just been so tough. But now, as we're coming to the end of that journey, we still got a long way to go, but we're coming to the end of at least one phase of that journey. So I wanted to make sure we had this conversation now. So yeah, we're gonna just dive into talking about Nollywood, some select Nollywood films that you recommended that I was able to watch, and then we'll come back around, tie it all up with you chatting about your film and
okay.
how these films had an influence on them or on it. So yeah, just start us off by talking a bit about Nollywood and some of the trends, the conventions, just what are the things that make a Nollywood film, basically.
Hey, all right. It's good to be here once again, and yeah, I consider myself a global filmmaker. Of course, I'm from Nigeria, which is the home of the second, sometimes people say it's the third largest film industry in the world. And talking about Nollywood, there is a bit of controversy as regards the name and even the history. So, as a student of history, I would love to give us an historical perspective on what I think Nollywood is, or Nigerian cinema, as the case may be. So,
Yes, please.
um, Nigerian cinema started as an offspring of the theater movement in Nigeria. And to me, I would say Nigerian cinema, which is popularly known as Nollywood, started in 1970. While some people would say, oh, it started in um, 1992, or some people would say the late 1990s. And I will still give like an historical rundown on why people say that.
Hmm.
Like I said, film has been made in Nigeria since 1909, 1911, with the influx of the British colonial masters who made propaganda films. And the first film that was made in Nigeria is called Palava, which is like a local parlance for trouble. So it was the first film that was made in Nigeria by the British and with some, Nigerians. Just it's highly propagandic in nature. If you have time, you can see it. It's a silent movie, and with that, there was the Colonial Film Unit, which is responsible for producing propaganda films, especially documentaries for the British Crown. And when the British had to leave after Nigeria's independence in 1960, so the ministry as colonial film units metamorphosed into what is known as the Federal Film Unit. Because as an independence, Nigeria was operating a federal system of government. So that's metamorphosed into Federal Film Units, FFU. And they also continued in that trend, making propaganda documentaries for the federal government of Nigeria. And that trend continued till um, a Nigerian who studied photography in the US called Francis Oladele. Francis Oladele studied photography. I can't remember where exactly, but I think it's between Pennsylvania or New York.
Hmm.
So he studied photography and he was able to make some connections in the film industry in the US. And he was able to come up with the idea of the first indigenous production company in Nigeria, which is known as Calpenny, Calpenny. And
Okay.
that is a combination of three states in the US. Would you like to take a guess on the names of those states?
Cal Penny, you said? CAL would be California, I imagine. Penn, Pennsylvania. Then what was the last one? It'd have to be New York, I would
That's
imagine.
correct. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So it brought California, Pennsylvania, and New York to, Nigeria. And was able to make some connections with some American or Hollywood filmmakers, Hollywood artists, as the case may be. And the person who directed the first indigenous Nigerian movie is actually American with the name Ossie Davids. Ossie Davids was on, I don't know if you've heard of him, he was on, I think, Curtain Goes to Harlem. So it
Mhm.
was like highly involved in like the Black Renaissance movement in the US, the pro-Black movement back in the 70s, 60s, 80s. So he was the one who actually directed um, the first Nigerian, the first independently produced Nigerian movie.
Gotcha.
One interesting thing about this this production was the film had the technical crew were from Sweden, the director American,
Hmm.
funding from Sweden, crew from Sweden, and they all came to Nigeria to work. So they had local crew members because filmmaking, like I said, that's like the first independently produced. Film was still pretty novel in Nigeria. It was new. This is like the birth of it. So,
Hmm.
well, just like local people who served as like technicians or assistants to these crew members. So there was actually a clash of language because the director is American, the crew is Swedish, they didn't speak English. Francis Oladele did not speak Swedish so well. So there was conflict between, the director and the crew and the cast.
Hmm.
Nigeria at that point was highly westernized because, like I said, the British just left 10 years prior to that. So
Hmm.
everyone wanted to be, um, a perfect British woman or man, as the case may be, because these were shows they were exposed to British TV shows and British
Hmm.
movies, so everyone believed that was the standard. So the director would want them to interpret their character this way, but because they saw a lot of British films, they would sort of put some influx of some British mannerism, British pronunciation in it.
Hmm.
And again, these guys were taught by British professors, at that time, because Nigeria till like the very late 90s still has like British professors in Nigerian universities. So like my dad, all his teachers were British, growing up from his
Hmm.
primary education to his high school, they were British. So those were like some of the influences. So to the director, that wasn't original enough. So they made the film, and I've seen the film. The film is online. You can take a look at it.
What's it called again? What was it?
Oh, I didn't mention the title. My bad. So the title of the first independently produced Nigerian movie is called Kongi's Harvest. Kongi apostrophe S and Harvest. Kongi's Harvest,
Ungi's Harvest. Okay.
and it's an adaptation of Wole Soyinka's Kongi's Harvest from the same name. Wole Soyinka is the first Nigerian to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. So he's a highly respected man in Nigeria and in the world. And
Nice.
he played the lead character as well.
Oh wow. That's pretty cool.
Because the person who
Um,
was supposed to play the lead dropped out a few days to the production. So he had to step in and, play the role.
wow.
He
Shout out
also
to him.
distanced himself from the movie after it was released. He said, the movie is not a correct interpretation of the screen is play text because, like I said, it's an adaptation of a play text.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was how film started among Nigerians. And after that, we have someone who came on the scene called Ola Balogun. Ola Balogun trained in France, partially in Senegal and in France, majorly in France, and he came back and he made the first indigenous Nigerian movie called Amadi. Amadi is an Igbo movie. We have like three major ethnic groups in Nigeria. We have Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. Ola Balogun, is a Yoruba, is an old man now. I believe he's almost 80 years. He grew up in the Igbo country, so he made, Igbo films. And after that, he made another one, a Yoruba film called Ajani Ogun. He made Ajani Ogun.
Hmm.
At this time, or prior to this period, theater was a booming and thriving art form in Nigeria, especially in the south and the western part of Nigeria. And this form of entertainment were handled by, I would say, three to four main guys who were like the leading figures in this. We've got Uba Ogunde. Uba Ogunde is known as the father of Nigerian theater. We have Durola Dipo. We have I would say, yeah, we have Adeyemi Afolayan. We have Kola Ogumola and a host of others. But I'll say the three most prominent ones then were um, Uba Ogunde, Durola Dipo, Adeyemi Afolayan. And of course, they were, others as well, like the Onyadejobi Theatre and a host of others. And with this movement, the country, so yeah, as at the 1970s, 1980s, the
Hmm.
country not really safe due to insecurity in some parts of Nigeria. So people were not going to the theater halls to watch live performances anymore at night, and the business was not booming anymore. And the way theater productions can be, it's really stressful. It's very physically demanding.
Mhm.
So these theater professionals decided to move into film, and they did that with the help of Ola Balogun, because Ola Balogun sort of has some sort of friendship with the theater guys. So they teamed up, and that was how they were able to make Ija Òmìnira. Ija Òmìnira was made in 1978. So Ija Òmìnira was produced by Adeyemi Afolayan and directed by Ola Balogun. And this was those in the theater, this was their first exposure to the world of cinema. And when they saw that, wow, this is a good experience, this is different, would love to do this. So other people like Ubato Gunde in 1980 also ventured into filmmaking, and he did that with Aye. Aye is an adaptation of one of his great stage plays, and it was also directed by Ola Balogun as well.
Mhm.
So that was how Nigerians began to embrace the cinema culture, and they all made a few films before the celluloid format became really expensive for them to continue to use, because at that time and still till now, we do not have any form of a film processing lab in Nigeria. So what they had to do was to take them to laboratories in the US and in the UK, especially to develop these film negatives.
Mhm.
And it became just really expensive because they depended on foreign exchange. The naira to dollar or the naira to pounds rate was really high on them, and they were not really making profits. And this was as a result of an economic policy proposed to the Nigerian government, the Ibrahim Badamasi military government, called the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, which devalued the naira.
Mm.
So the naira lost, its value in the international market, and people were not really able to do business with other countries. So it became really expensive.
Right.
And the celluloid era had to die. And that was when the video format came in, which is, the VHS.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was when it came in, um, and people began to experiment on this. And actually, people were actually using the film reversals. They were using reversal stocks, the TV reversal stocks from TV programs in the late 80s, because they were like also TV stations in Nigeria then, and the first TV station in Africa was, it's in Nigeria. It's called the Western Nigerian Television. I think that was 1958 or 1959. So, TV was also a thing back in Nigeria, and like I said, people began to experiment with VHS.
Right.
And the first blockbuster film in Nigeria is known as Living in Bondage, and that was in 1992.
Okay. So that's why some people will say that's
Exactly.
the start
Yeah.
of Nollywood, 1992, because of that film.
Yes, exactly. So my
Interesting.
question to those people is, okay, so those producing films in the 70s, what have they been doing really? Were they like just playing video games, or just running around,
Hmm.
making film for God's sake, you know? But the method of distribution then was, in some theaters they do like film tours. They take it around towns, around city halls, around schools. So that was the method of film distribution in Nigeria, and they were able to take it around the country and even to some um, West African countries as well, some neighboring countries. So they were able to take their film to these places before the cinema formats became just expensive. And these formats, people would say, okay, the VHS format gave birth to Nollywood, and it was in 1992. And due to research, from my research, people have been making films on video on VHS in Nigeria as far back as the 1980s.
Hmm.
And there are two films that, keeps popping up, which is Ekun and Shonshomeji. They are like Yoruba words. You may not be able to get them, but it's Ekun and Shonshomeji. So these films were made, I think, one in 1985 and the other one in 1988. And Living in Bondage came in 1992. So I would say even with that fact, Living in Bondage did not start, Nollywood, but it popularized Nollywood.
Gotcha.
So, and that was when the attention of the that was when the Nigerian cinema was able to get the attention of the Western world. And it would interest you to know that the name Nollywood was actually given to cinema or to Nigerian cinema by an American, not a Nigerian.
Mm, gotcha.
Americans are good at naming names.
True. Yeah, or they just try and make it's either the new Hollywood, like many cities in America, they try to slap that label onto. I think
Oh,
Orlando at one point as well.
oh,
And
really?
uh and then just any, I guess, other country's film industry, just how can we fit Hollywood into it? But just changing out one letter. So yeah, interesting. Is Nollywood, like is that the preferred way you guys want to talk about the film industry, or like Nigerian cinema? Like, is it a term where it's like, oh, like that's kind of like we're not Nollywood, or we're not a an offshoot of Hollywood, we're our own thing type of thing?
Yeah, yeah. There are some decolonization agents, decolonization philosophers, and those who belong to the decolonization school of thoughts. They
Hmm.
don't want to associate with the name because again, the name there are some controversies, like I just mentioned now, historical controversies surrounding the name. So
Right.
some people just prefer to call it Nigerian cinema, you know, but it's Nigerian cinema and it's also known as Nollywood.
Hmm.
That's how, I'll just put it. So that was our I think it was it was a New York Times publication. Um I can't remember the name of the journalist right now, but it was a New York Times publication. That was how the name was given. And I think the article says step aside LA and Bombay for Nollywood. So that step aside Hollywood and Bollywood for Nollywood.
Right.
So that's the title of the article in the New York Times. So yeah, so that was how the industry became more popular. And what actually made it more popular was at that time they were producing lots of movies every week. They were producing a lot of movie every week, and so there was sort of like a film boom in the country because everywhere you turn to, everyone was making movies because it was cheap. It was just VHS cameras. What you just need to do is buy a cheap video camera and have some blank tape on it, and start filming. You are good to go. It's very cheap to make.
Hmm.
You are good to go. And that was what Nollywood was known for as like, oh, the cheap, the very quick, low budget film industry. They are just after quantity and not quality.
Right.
And this filmmaker, this artist just wanted to tell, stories of what was happening in their communities, what happened to their sister, their uncle, their king, just day-to-day story of people they see around them.
Hmm.
So that was how it started, or that was how it became more popular. That was how it became more popular. And around 2000 and between 2006 and 2008, it reached a decline because they were just it was just too many movies,
Mm,
we were producing so much, and the quality was not good. And that was when um, some filmmakers decided to um, reestablish a convention or start a new convention, which is known as the New Nollywood Convention, just the same way we have the New Hollywood Convention.
hmm.
So we have the New Nollywood Convention, which prioritizes, high budget film, high value for production, paying proper attention to details, going through the film festival route, doing theatrical distributions, and just making films in a more westernized way, the Hollywood model, sort of.
Gotcha.
So that was when this trend started again in Nigeria, and this trend is popularly attributed to Kunle Afolayan, who is the son of Adeyemi Afolayan.
Okay.
Yeah, so so it's like a family affair.
There you go. Yeah.
So, his first film was actually which is Irapada. I think Irapada was made in 2008. Irapada was shot on celluloid, and it won. It did some festival round, won a couple of awards, and he came back with, or the next film he made after that was The Figurine, which was like a hit because it was just different from what you were seeing around. The production values there, the acting, the cinematography, the mode of distribution, the attention to detail. It was not, something that was hurriedly made. You could see that, wow, this, film was properly made. So that was how people again began to pay more attention to details, shooting films on, high budget and doing film the right way. Then we enjoyed that. Then in 2018, streaming distribution, which is Netflix came on board, and the Nigerian film they first acquired is known as Lion Arts. Lion Arts by Genevieve Unaji. Genevieve is a diva. She's an actress in the Nigerian film industry, and that
Gotcha.
was how Netflix, got into the film industry, and they began to co-produce or license film, or and even produce Netflix originals, and they were able to also do some form of trainings and financial support for Nigerian filmmakers. And I think they really enjoyed this because this took off the burden of distribution off their neck, because
Mm,
distribution can also be a big deal in the country. So when you've made your movie, you've got to spend money on PR and advertising, which can be a lot. So Netflix took that off because Netflix has the platform already.
right.
So filmmakers really enjoyed this, and I think it was a good time. Prime also came on board. But just late last year, Netflix decided to reduce the number of Nigerian Netflix original films.
Oh,
So it's impacted funding and even the number of films that get on the Netflix platform in recent times. So, and I believe this was based on some form of financial decision. Netflix is a business platform.
hmm.
Film is business. I guess they were not getting um, some good return on investment, so they just had to cut back on that investment. So, which is understandable. Yeah, it's film business.
Right, for sure. But yeah, I'd seen with Breath of Life, it was part of a three-picture deal with Amazon Prime where
Yes, that's
they
correct.
would, I don't know if they co-produced it at all, but they would distribute it. um, like the films from that production company. So yeah, it's interesting seeing the streamers trying to get into the game, like the international markets for sure.
Yeah.
Netflix has been able to do that over the past decade the best, but now everyone's trying to catch up and do their own uh, sort of model with that. And so that was because, yeah, it was easy to find Breath of Life since it was just on Prime already. And that was like its original home too. So yeah, I definitely think that the streaming era helps make some of those films more accessible.
Yeah.
Um, but how do you feel about that? Because that's, I mean, as you've seen from your time being here and everything with uh, the theatrical market, like the theatrical side of the business, is just continuously becoming split between the mega blockbusters like Minecraft,
Yeah.
which have you seen? Or are you going to go see that? Doesn't seem
Yeah.
like
See that. I'll see
your type
that.
of thing, but no. But so movies like that, which are going to clean up, maybe make $1 billion, and then the smaller films are barely making 10 million, maybe 20 million domestic in their total run. And
Mm.
that's if they don't get sent off to theater or out of theaters and onto streaming or PVOD like right away, like within 17 days of their release. So, yeah, I just wonder if that's if because there wasn't such an established theatrical distribution model in Nigeria, if I guess that like major shift isn't as prominent there. Um, and if the streamers getting involved is like more of a uh, positive thing, since it does mean that there's more productions being able to be made, and then there's that reliable distribution network of just streaming. And as you said, the filmmakers don't have to worry too much about all the marketing costs and advertising, PR, all that stuff on top of just getting the film made, which alone is its own hassle. Um, so yeah, is that a point of contention in the film industry in Nigeria, like the growing presence of streamers, and if that takes away at all from the theatrical business there, or
Yes.
is it more of just a like positive thing overall?
I think filmmakers embrace it, more positively because, like I
Mm,
said, during the 80s, talking about the structural adjustment program, the country became unsafe because standard of living dropped and, nothing was safe anymore in the country. People had to resort into, some form of crime, like carjacking, armed robbery, and, the likes. So people were not able to go to cinemas anymore because you could be going or returning from the cinema at night and your car could be jacked and probably you may get killed. So people stopped going there. The cinema business died.
mm,
And some of these or most of these cinema, houses were turned into warehouses, and some religious organizations, some churches put up some of those spaces. And so they were not, 18 anymore because of, high rate of insecurity, and people were not making film on celluloid anymore. People
right,
moved, video. So, and everyone had a TV in their house. So it was just more easy for people to, watch movies or TV series or soap operas with their family, back home than risking their lives. So not
right.
until like around 2008, like I said, 2007, that the cinema business came back to Nigeria. So people began to build cinema houses, and because like I previously on video formats, you don't need to showcase your film in the cinemas. It's video, so you don't need all of that. So when people began to, do film on an improved level in a more proper way, cinema naturally would come back because it needs a mode of exhibition.
Hmm.
That mode of exhibition opened up again. So, and filmmakers embraced that. And even though it was an expensive adventure, but they had to do it because it seems to be the right way of uh, releasing movies. And it
For sure.
was was really doing great. But the problem is we just did not have I think as at 4 or 5 years ago, we had just 99 cinema screens in Nigeria, not cinema houses, cinema screens.
Yeah, wow. That's
So
I mean, just in the area, like the Regals around here have
just
probably
the way
70% of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just the way it goes in Orlando, just their screens. So, but I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I had, the number has almost doubled now. So, which is a good thing, but it's not still serving the populace well because Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people. So there are some states that don't have cinema houses. So there's still an untapped resources instead in terms of getting people to go to the movies to see movies
Hmm.
in cinema. And there are also, when a cinema is built somewhere, there are also some other form of businesses attached to it, like the soda business, the popcorn,
Right.
the other form of business would also open up. So yeah, but it was a bit tedious because the industry in Nigeria is not like the US. We are an highly independent based film industry. So we don't have the big five, not the big three. So everything has to be, to a large extent, self-distributed. So
Right.
you'll be the writer, director, producer, sit with the editor, you'll be the one to find distribution for it, advertise, market. So it's a lot. So when Netflix came, that sort of, like I said, took the burden of the filmmakers. What they just needed to do was to write and direct the film, really. And
Hmm.
Netflix would, cover the rest. And another positive point in that is people outside of the country were able to see Nigerian films. And at some point, so some of Nigerian series on Netflix were like top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
So without Netflix, that would be impossible because we've not been able to penetrate into the other film markets in the world. Like in 2023, yes, in January 2023, a Nigerian film, was distributed to US, and of course it was at Regal Cinemas.
Hmm.
I went there, I was like, oh, so this film is like gaining traction in Nigeria. We should go see it. We should go see it. So I went there with my friends to to see the movie, just the Regal Cinema by university or by
Hmm.
Alafaya, sorry, by Alafaya. So it was just the two of us for a film of I think 2 hours 30 minutes. So it was just the two of us.
Hmm.
It was a good experience, but I wasn't happy because it was just the two of us. I think we've not just been able to break into the international market scene, but with Netflix, we're able to do that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's like one of the big advantage of such platform.
For sure. What was that film that you saw?
Oh, it's called Part One Booker Street.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, I think did Breath of Life was that one only on Amazon Prime or did it have a little bit of a like theatrical run as well?
No, so Bread of Life is an Amazon original, so it was just on, just straight to Prime. And also one of, the good things about the VOD streaming platform is it opened up an extra revenue income for filmmakers. Like I
Hmm.
said, Netflix do not only commission movies, they also acquire films. So if your film has a great theatrical run, you can be sure Netflix would reach out to you and they would, have your film in their catalog. So that's also an extra, source of income for filmmakers.
Gotcha. Well, all right. Let's move into our conversation about some of those films. Breath of Life, again, is a more recent one, 2023, I believe. And then
Yes.
Mother George was 2013, I believe.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, I asked you, I was like, I'm curious to see some of these films because, yeah, I've not been able to catch any previously. So I wanted to see what Nigerian cinema was like, what it had to offer, and no better person to give me recommendations than you. So I I was curious about what some of your favorite films were. Um, and you mentioned Breath of Life as one of them. So yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on why this one sticks out so much, what you enjoy about it. Yeah, just go ahead and speak to that.
Okay. So, one thing, there's a phrase my or one of my role models to say would say, "Story is king." Story is king,
Hmm.
and we actually have lots of good um, Nigerian stories, but they didn't come didn't come they were not effectively interpreted because of lack of technical know-how and just being able to transpose um, the story from the script to screen, because film also has its language. It has its mood. So, but Breath of Life just stood out for me because, it did not only have a great story with, great acting, the film technologies, the film mood really came alive well in Breath of Life.
Hmm.
It's and when I saw it, it was just to that form because the story I was able to relate with it. It was well told, it was beautifully made.
Hmm.
Just, see that this is different from what, I'm used to seeing. So it really stood out for me, in that manner. It was really well.
Different than what you're used to seeing in what way?
I mean,
From like Nigerian cinema?
yeah, yeah, from Nigerian cinema, because again, we just have lots of melodramatic movies.
Hmm.
So it was appearing like stories were being recycled,
Mm.
and production design and cinematography were just used to cover up those deficiencies. So it got to a point people were paying more attention to production value, to cinematography, to production design than the actual story itself.
Right.
And, people still talk about The Godfather today because of the story. So I think that should be one of the things filmmakers should try to look out for, because one of my goals as a filmmaker is to make films that outlive me. We still talk about Citizen Kane till today. We still talk about Psycho till today, a lot of great movies. Why? Because, they were well made. The story was beautifully told, and we still remember the plot. That we
Hmm.
remembered a shot or a dolly or a pan or a tilt. I think a movie that I can remember an interesting shot from it would be Jaws, the Zolly move on the beach.
Yep, for sure. That dolly zoom.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. So people were paying more attention to, cinematography at some point in Nigeria, production design, and attention was not really not given to the story. But this sort of served like a perfect blend, perfect mix.
Hmm.
So, on the first time I saw the movie, I had to watch it like right after again because it was just, a perfect mix. It's just like having your burger with some very, nice cheese, your, Big Mac. So
Right.
it was a perfect mix, yes.
Nice. Yeah, to that point about the story is definitely critical
Yes.
in with film because as you said, it has its own language. The storytelling is that other component that can help make something outlive the filmmaker and make it a classic that we come back to over and over again. So for sure, The Godfather, because I mean that was originally a book, and I think the movie was made like fairly quickly after that book had come out. But when you say The Godfather, right, everyone goes to the movie, not necessarily the book.
Yeah.
Whereas The Great Gatsby, for instance, is one, or Grapes of Wrath, where they have
Oh,
pretty
wow. Talking about it.
popular movie adaptations, but you still think of those as like books first and
Oh,
foremost, like they're
so
classics in the literature rather
sorry to
than cinema.
cut you short. So talking about the Great Gatsby,
Hmm.
there's a dear friend of mine who loves the Great Gatsby, and she was being like, "Oh, you should see this movie, Tolu." So it's been on my watch list.
Mm.
So I'm sure I'll see the Great Gatsby pretty soon.
You should do it. There's a couple different versions. Did he mean the like more recent one, the Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one, and it's very stylish. Like Baz Luhrmann's the director for that one, and it's definitely entertaining to watch.
Oh,
But I don't think it compares to the book at all,
oh,
because
okay.
that is just one of the most well-written, I think, books we have. Again, it's like one of the classic American literature pieces, and
Oh,
so. But the point I was making there is like, yeah, the story of Great Gatsby is incredible, and it makes for an excellent like master work of a novel and entertaining, but not a classic of a film. At least the more recent one. Same with some other novel adaptations that we've had. Godfather, I would say, is similar to that, where I'm sure the basic story is pretty much the same. I haven't read the book, so I can't speak too much to that, but the storytelling that Francis Ford Coppola was able to do, bringing that to life, and then obviously the cast that he had in there, Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, that the ability to bring performance, screen performances, and then the cinematography in that, I'm sure you've also had maybe taught, I don't know, with some of the classes you've taught at UCF, but everyone goes to that, the overhead lighting in that initial scene when we come across Marlon Brando, where his
yeah,
eyes are pretty much in shadow.
that's right.
Um, like even just that, like using visuals, using the elements that we have in the medium of film in order to convey character in such a like visceral way
Oh,
where we can rationalize it, we can talk through it and understand it, but just that immediate like seeing that image of him like this gangster, this person in control petting a cat while his eyes aren't even visible to us, like that just immediately conveys like a sense of power that he has and a sense of dread of like we don't know what this guy might do, what cards he's gonna play. So all that is to say, yeah, story. I think the like bare bones, the skeleton of a story is super important, but the storytelling can definitely elevate it beyond what may have just been on the page. And so with Breath of Life, I think it's interesting that the story itself was the thing that you were citing as like this is the standout element to it, um, and that the production, design, cinematography you said was also like great, went hand in hand. Were other Nigerian films around this time? I guess this is very recent, like a couple years ago. Um, but would you say that there has been like of the production value, like the production design, the lighting, the cinematography, uh, like all of those had been elevated in films, but it's just the same tropes of melodrama had been getting put in films over and over again. And this one, the story about this old man, Timmy, who went through a crazy life. He was like a very smart, very academic, very involved in the community, and a pastor at a church experiences this terrible tragedy with his family, and then becomes a curmudgeon basically for the rest of his life until his new um, butler, I would say, or attendant. I forget what the exact word was used. Uh, but somebody now enters into his life to help cook for him and housekeep and everything. And then he softens and is able to find his way back to being happy, back to his faith. Um, so that story, it spans decades. It's got a couple different characters. It's got this whole communal element to it. So it is definitely, uh, there's a lot going on in there. So for that, is it like just that story itself felt more ambitious and distinct than what other Nigerian films had been doing as of late?
So like I said, it's for me it was just the perfect blend of
Mm.
the story and the technology. So I could feel the character's emotion. I'm not the emotional type. I'm not the emotional type. And when I have my sister or my mom crying or my friend crying, I'll be like,
Hmm.
come on, it's just a movie.
Sure.
So, but this I could feel, I could empathize with the characters,
Hmm.
in a very long time. I could empathize, even though I know it's a movie, but I just again because as filmmakers, we know the craft so well, so we just be like, nah, come on, it's just a movie.
Right.
But for the first time in a very long while, I could empathize with the character. I could feel their pain. I could feel their hurt. I was happy when they were happy. I was sad when they were sad.
Hmm.
And I can't remember a time that, a movie made me feel that way. So I was able to relate with, the story on that level.
Nice. I mean, that's beautiful. That's what we're always searching for as film fans and what we want to impart onto our audience as filmmakers. So I'm glad. And definitely throughout the film, there were instances where I was emotionally invested and uh, definitely had that impact that the filmmakers were trying to give to me. That sequence when and I guess spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but it happens early in the film. It's kind of like the basic premise.
Yeah.
His wife and young daughter are killed in front of him, like
Yeah.
burnt in a car. And that was so just intense. It
Yeah.
was very well done from again, like a film standpoint. But yeah, it was definitely intense. And I would say the overall beats of, again, him like forming this bond with Elijah and towards the end, there's a whole thing about Timmy has impossibly strong lungs, and Elijah has asthma and isn't able to breathe a lot of times, so he's using an inhaler. And then they make a certain choice with that plays into the title, which I was like, okay, like it's very like I will say it was definitely a bit cheesy, but it worked. It was the sentimentality that's like, okay, they sort of earned it throughout the 2 hour runtime, and I was smiling when it, happened. When you see like that choice that he makes, um, it was really sweet, really beautiful. So yeah, I think definitely it is a great one to watch for that. Are there any other things that stood out to you about it, or favorite parts,
Yeah,
favorite
and
elements?
like you mentioned the title you mentioned and I'm a Christian, follower of Christ, and um, the Bible talked about God breathing His breath into man, which is called the breath of life. So,
Hmm.
so you know that was interesting for me to see that how Timmy was able to breathe the breath of life, essentially.
Yeah.
To Elijah, yeah. So that's like as artists, we are creators, we create stories, we create people. So it was
Hmm.
interesting for me to see Timmy essentially recreate Elijah. So that was pretty interesting for me. Yeah, the title is also, one of the things I really loved.
for sure. And then Mother of George
Mm,
was the other film we had talked about watching, and so I was able to see that. And I'm curious as well to hear what about the film stuck out to you. I know it's a big inspiration on your film, and we get more into that later. But I'm just curious when you first heard about this film, first watched it, and what were your thoughts then, and then sort of how that
yeah,
has changed or maybe stayed the same as it's become increasingly important to your journey as a filmmaker, since it's one of those key inspirations for you.
yeah. So the first time I saw Mother of George was I think that was in 2016 or 2017.
Hmm.
So when I saw it, believe me, I did not understand the movie. I was like, oh, this is like a hard pill to swallow. And if you watch, okay, yeah, you've seen Bread of Life.
Yep.
And were you able to see Mother of George?
Yes. Yeah, I
Okay.
saw Mother George.
Talking about conventions, Mother of George and Bread of Life do not belong to the same category in terms of convention.
Right.
So I was used to seeing, you know, melodramatic movies that would just play out in, the linear narrative form. So I was used to seeing that type of movie. And here comes Mother of George. It was so different for me. So I did not understand. When I saw it I think 2016 should be the first time, or 2017. I did not understand it. Then I spoke with a friend and I was like, oh, so have you seen this movie? She was like, yeah, I've seen it. I don't understand it. It's not interesting. So I was like, yes, I agree with you. It's pretty boring. It's not interesting. It's not. Then until I started, or I was in the process of, making part two yesterday, the writing phase. Then I had to research on films that are similar themes.
Hmm.
Mother of George popped up. I was like, I think I've seen this movie before. Okay, I remember you. This is like the very hard movie that I did not understand back then. I should see it again. So I saw it again and I was able to understand much more better. And at this point in time, I was, exposed to film from different countries. I was exposed to different conventions.
Hmm.
It became pretty clear and, pretty much more straightforward for me. And I was like, I think this film has got some good stuff in it, you know. So, Mother of George served like you have so much information about Party yesterday already. So, Mother of George was, a big inspiration for me for making Party yesterday. Although I've sort of started the journey like for Party yesterday before I stumbled on Mother of George again, but they
Hmm.
shared the same team, so it was a really interesting research experience for me. And when I did more research on it, I discovered it's won the 2013 Sundance Film Festival for in the dramatic competition category.
Hmm.
The cinematographer, of course, the famous Bradford Young, also won the 2013 Cinematography Sundance Award for that work as well. So I was like, okay, now I know why, this film is, doing well. And I also spoke to some Nigerian American filmmakers, like young filmmakers as well. And they also cited Mother of George as, part of their inspiration for some of their works.
Hmm.
So it's a film that, really speak to me as a Nigerian because this team is teams I can relate to, like not cheesy. It's pretty straightforward. I know what the film is about, and I could relate to this, even though some of these the experiences of the characters are not my lived experience, but of
Hmm.
course, I know people who have lived such experience.
Right. So yeah, talk a bit about what that film is about,
Yes.
like the actual plot of it.
Oh, okay. So it's basically about a Nigerian couple, Ayodele and Nike, who lived in or who were living in what's it called New York in the US.
Hmm.
And right from the onset of their marriage, the mother-in-law, that's Ayo's mom, wants a grandchild, like right from the get-go, right from the night of the wedding. I think that was like the second scene, I would say. Yes, right from the second scene,
Yeah.
presented her with some fertility beads and some, baby clothes and stuff that would make her fertile, sort of like passing. She was like, okay, these are like the clothes I used for your husband when he was a baby. So I'm passing them
Hmm.
on to you now. So you know what to do. So um the film, that's what it's about basically. It's about a young woman who was who's been pressured by a mother-in-law to give her a grandson. And unknowing to spoilers.
Well, you can go into, I guess, because I think it's pretty implied in like the log line and everything, and obviously me going into it because I knew the inspiration for your film. I was like, okay, I know what's happened. But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet and want to go in spoiler free, go and do so. But yeah, the main conflict that arises is they are trying for a baby, but it's not happening because one of them is infertile, and it becomes increasingly clear that it is the would-be father that is not able to produce a child. So then the rest of the film is just them trying to figure out how are they going to make this happen if he doesn't want to go to the doctors, any fertility clinics, and they're still being, hounded by his mother to have a new family member, have that grandchild for her. So yeah, that's the film. Um, and for me watching it, it was interesting because first of all, the big takeaway for me at least was the cinematography. You mentioned Bradford Young, who did Pariah as well a few years before, which happened to be one of the inspirations for my film. And
Wow.
then later he did Selma, he did Arrival, which is probably his most renowned work. And then he did Solo, a Star Wars story. And then he's been gone for a while. He did some TV, but now he's uh, maybe coming back more. He had a 2024 film, but that didn't cause too much of a stir. So I wish he had more work because he's fantastic. Like this film looks gorgeous, looks incredible. So many shots I was continually wowed by.
Yeah.
And the style that they took, where there were so many shots that were just close-ups on the clothing, the traditional Nigerian clothing, and then close-ups of parts of the face, or we're focusing on just one character in an argument, not able to see everything else going on, or we're looking at them through mirrors or through a sheath, like we're just
Yeah.
distance from them a lot of the times. What they did continually with those like compositions, I thought were just incredible because it gives the feeling of these two people are like constantly surrounded by pressure and by
Yeah.
their, cultural expectations, to the point where sometimes they're not even visible. Like it's just the cultural expectations, like just their clothing or again certain items they have in their home or just their profession, what they're trying to do to stay afloat, things like that. So from a visual standpoint, like the cinematography, I thought was
So,
gorgeous and so effective at conveying the story of again like these two people that are trying to just have a family and be happy, but they have all this weight being put on them, and that they're putting on themselves to an extent as well. So yeah, I thought that part of it was brilliant. But yeah, so what elements about it? Because your film is similar. I think now would be a good time for you to just talk about Path to Yesterday. You can give your log line that hopefully you still have memorized deep in your brain that we've for 3 years we've been tinkering with and having to repeat. So
Yeah.
you can give that, and then maybe talk a bit about. I'm curious if there were any like changes you made to your film or things that you were like, okay, maybe I'll do something like this because Mother George did it that way, or maybe I'll do something differently because Mother George already did it a certain way. But yeah, go ahead and talk to us about Path to Yesterday.
Right. So, Party Yesterday is about a Nigerian immigrant woman who is on the verge of breaking her marriage when she discovers her husband's infidelity and infertility. And she is also caught up between healing from a childhood trauma and deciding the paternity of a child. So it's in the mix of, an immigrant story, it's a psychological slash family drama. And it was influenced by things around me. So I grew up, growing up in Nigeria, I grew up around patriarchy system. So, and I was like, okay, I think some of these things, some of these cultural expectations should change because I just don't think they are not only being fair, some of it to a large extent is unrealistic. For example, we talked about infertility,
Hmm.
which happens in the character of Mother of George and also in my movie with the man being infertile. We don't talk about infertility in men, which is a thing actually. And
Hmm.
the whole bulk of the problem when the baby is not forthcoming in marriage is always pointed to the woman. And like I said, I'm a Christian, a church boy, grew up in the church. Anytime there's a call for the fruit of the womb, it's the woman, who
Hmm.
come out for prayers, not the men. And sometimes the women are not the problem.
Right, right,
But
right, right.
the woman would come out and be like, oh, okay, then all I should be on that, oh, I think she's infertile. Come on, she's not infertile. The man is infertile
Right.
to make it be herself. So these are some of the, sort of taboos that I decided to bring to the front burner to make people are aware that oh, men can actually be infertile. We've got infertile men who can't, make babies. So it's not about oh, the woman is infertile or the woman was promiscuous growing up and she's
Mhm.
just a problem. So treat her as such. So that was the big, the very big motivation for me. And we also have this mandatory post study experience we do in Nigeria. It's called the National Youth Service Corps, where we get posted outside the state of our origin.
Mm.
So I was posted to I would not mention the name of the state, but I was posted to a state in the northern part of Nigeria, which is highly Islamized. And I
Okay.
saw how young women, children were treated because, of course, they do not know better. Women were treated like, oh, this should just, just give birth to her. She doesn't need any form of education because at the end of the day, she's going to go to her husband's house and she'll become
Mm.
a wife. She would give birth to kids. She'll cook for the husband, and that's the end of her journey.
Right.
So I served on an NGO which tackles some of these problems. So that was how I was able to get first-hand experience of some of these things these young children go to. But I believe that everyone has a plan, everyone has a purpose, everyone has a glorious destiny to fulfill.
Hmm.
The wife can be the breadwinner. The wife can be the president.
There you go.
So that's why, at some point in the movie, that's why I decided to make Roti jobless. So Can be, that's the name of my female protagonist, can be the breadwinner. And there's also this issue about breadwinner in the African context versus the American context. So when I wrote the screenplay and Professor Tim read it, it was like, okay, so there's no, I don't see a problem. I was like, oh, this is actually a big problem back home. Cultural expectations, the man is meant to be the head of the family, so he's meant to be the provider, financially, not only
Hmm.
the spiritual head, the spiritual protector, is meant to be the economic provider, is meant to, fend for his family financially. So,
Right.
and we've got some women who don't work, back in Nigeria, they are just full housewives and the men provide for the family, which is a good thing. I'm not against that, but I think women are women are also made for the greater good. Women have got purpose. Women have got
Hmm.
goals and dreams that should be fulfilled and should be nurtured and supported. So that's the point of view I'm coming from. And I'm not a feminist, FIY, for you, just to put that out there. I tilt towards more of a womanism, which is like an African sort of concept of feminism. So I love the African culture. I love the Nigerian culture so much.
Hmm.
I just believe culture should not be static. Culture has never been static, actually. So maybe we should do some sort of reviews and be open to discussion, be open to dialogue on some of these cultural expressions, some of these traditions that do not, really serve us.
Well
Yes.
said. I think, yeah, that is something I think that can still, like, definitely resonate in America as well. Like that whole, because I don't know how much you've been keeping up with things like that, but yeah, there's definitely been a reappraisal of like gender dynamics and social roles in the United States lately, where some people do want to go back to uh, what is just an unreasonable thing, where there's one person that's able to work and bring in all the money, and like nowadays that's just it's just not possible. Like two people in the home need to be working to provide and support for the kids and the rest of the family. But um, yeah, some people would still prefer it to be that old-fashioned way where the man's the breadwinner and then the woman is the keeper of the home. And so I think even though it sounds like it's more of a issue in Nigeria where it's more, I guess, expected, more of the norm that that is the case where there's the man's supposed to be the breadwinner and uh, the
Yeah.
woman is not expected to work or not encouraged at all to work. Um, that's still, for whatever reason, still a major uh, thing that gets brought up here in America. So yeah, I think that element to it definitely can resonate with many, many audiences. But the thing about your film, especially, is that added element of the immigrant experience.
Yeah.
Um, and so I love the way that you're talking there about culture is not static. It's meant to sort of like evolve and change. And that happens through interactions with other cultures a lot of times. And so, yeah, the ideal scenario, I guess, would be being able to take the more positive elements of a culture, which for me, I think are always going to lean towards what will make people be able to pursue their dreams and their aspirations and be able to fulfill them more readily. Like that, I think is the ideal thing we should hope for anyone and everyone. So if certain cultural elements allow that to be more acceptable, I think those are positive and we should encourage the spread and adoption of those while still holding on to very unique and distinct cultural elements that create like a fondness and a sense of belonging and home and community with people. And so, for instance, like in your film, you have a lot of the traditional clothing as well. The like mother-in-law character for sure always has that. Um, and this is an audio podcast, so people won't be able to see your face, Tulu, or your wardrobe. But I gotta say, again, you're always rocking the best clothes at UCF because you're bringing your, Nigerian clothing and wardrobe. And so elements like that, where, yeah, people are able to be proud of where they come from and represent, so to speak. I think that is always great as well. So like not losing that part while being able to incorporate more equality for men and women. Like that does seem like it'd be an ideal scenario. And so that's like something you're trying to explore with this film, is like that tension in a way, but just the the conflict of wanting to hold on to parts of a culture while trying to adjust other parts of the culture.
Yes, exactly. So I don't believe we should throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Hmm.
So, like I said, I'm a student of history, and I really dug deep into the Yoruba history, which is where I'm from.
Hmm.
So, and people would say, "Oh, this is how," for example, this is how, because like the paramount, should I? Yeah, let me call him the paramount traditional ruler in from the culture I come from. Just I was just installed recently.
Mm.
I would say because there's also a clash between who is the paramount ruler of this, culture. So let me say one of the paramount rulers basically was just installed, and they were back and forth on how he was selected, the selection process,
Mm.
and people were like, "Oh, this is how it used to be." But people did not know that prior to what they refer to as this is how it used to be, the mode of selection was not that. It was a different mode. It was
Hmm.
a different mode. And even the way we speak our culture and the way we speak our language is changing.
Hmm.
Some 60 years ago, some 80 years ago, the way I speak Yoruba, my local cultural dialect, is not the way it's been spoken now.
Right.
Like you said, there are a lot of influences from other culture. So things are changing. Things have been changing, since way back.
Hmm.
So instead of saying, "Oh, the African culture is bad," or the Nigerian culture is bad, no, there is always, like I tell people, when people say, "Oh, this tribe is bad," I'll be like, "Nope, there are bad people in every tribe,
Hmm.
or there are bad people in every country." So these are, things I believe we should look into. I've got a very beautiful, lovely culture, but there are some things I don't agree with, which has always been the case. Like free colonial era, people did not always agree with um the mode of operation or the way of life in a particular area. People have always challenged authorities, and
Hmm.
that's changed due to one reason or the other. Things have evolved. So, which I think is also one of the things we should you know look into, because I believe we are doing ourselves more harm than good, instead of relegating our lovely, lovely, beautiful women to the background. And pre-colonial times, women actually has like prominent roles in our traditional institution.
Mm.
But people did not actually know, most people now don't even know of that. Women have been adequately represented. We don't need a quota system before, women has their role, women has their place, women has their seats. So they've always been at the table negotiating for their rights.
Hmm.
So it would interest you to know women actually has in Nigerian women actually has started voting than some countries in Europe. So Nigerian
Mm.
women, have been like early voters compared to some Western countries. So I believe there are a lot of good that these great creators would bring to their nation, would bring to their family. So I believe we should actually pay more attention to them. And I must commend them. They are very strong. Women are very strong. Women are,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I believe we should engage with them more in that area.
Well, all right. Very well said. Very interesting, like just background information there for what motivated you to write the film and why it's important. Again, I love that it has, on its own, it can be an entertaining film, but there's clearly more substance there. So I'm glad that you're able to share a bit more about that. And hopefully we will be able to see it on, I don't know, who knows, Netflix, hopefully in some theaters around the area, in some film festivals.
That's
Um,
correct.
but yeah, where do you want this film to end up? And what would you want the people in Nigeria to say about it when they're able to watch it?
So starting off for where I'd like the film to end up. So first of all, I'd like to um, take the film around three continents for sort of film festival tours. So these continents are targeted are continents where we have sort of a high population of African immigrants. So because they are the film's primary audience, so I believe they should see this. So there'll be film festival targeted at Africans, at immigrants, and
Hmm.
some cultural film festivals and related art forms. So that's like my primary goal first. And by extension, I would also take it to some states in the US where we have high density of Nigerians. Again, that's the primary audience. So I believe they should see this because, like I said, it's more of an immigrant experience.
Hmm.
Some people would, migrate to the US from Nigeria, or they may even just come to the US separately and they found love and decided to, marry one another. And the husband would expect his wife to function the way his mom functioned 50 years ago, back in,
Right.
which is, realistically, it's impossible because times have changed,
Hmm.
times have changed. So they are the primary audience. So I want them to see this. And after that, fingers crossed, by God's grace, I uh, believe the film would get distributed so more people can even see it because, like, this is an independent project. So there's, I'm bonded by time and space. I can't be everywhere, but if it gets distribution deal, the film would definitely get to places I would not be able to go. So because I'm not making film for myself. I know there's a school of thoughts that believes you should make film for yourself, and when you make film for yourself, people would love it. I don't agree with that school of thought. I don't make film for myself. I share my experience and my thoughts with people, so more people can see it. So I make films for people to see. And several years to come, 50, 100 years to come, when I depart this art, I still want people to talk about that movie because of the story and the significance it holds. So yeah.
Hmm.
And of course I'll still make many more films by God's grace. So this is the first of many.
Absolutely. Well, Tolu, thanks again for coming on to the podcast and talking about some notable films from Nigerian cinema, as well as your own, which I am sure will be added very soon to that canon of
Yeah.
Nigerian cinema, the must watches for people that are curious about Nigerian cinema and the history of it. Um, yeah, you have been, I mean, we've been in the same boat together for 3 years now, trying to make our films. And again, we still have a ways to go before it's done. But I just want to say, once again, congratulations to you. You worked extremely hard, not just in the filmmaking aspects, but all the other things that you had to juggle
Yeah.
alongside of that. Again, I think you've given more like research presentations or given speeches at symposiums and things like that than anyone else I know. So you have put in so much work, so much effort into this, and you have a film under your belt ready to get out there to the world to see. So congrats once again. I'm so proud of you being able to get this far, and I'll be rooting for you as you get to the finish line with this film and hopefully get that distribution. I'll be so excited once that happens for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. It's good to be here. Thank you once again for having me. And I hope when the film is out in the world, when it's been distributed, I hope I'll be able to come back here again and say, okay, this is where the film
Absolutely. That would be
yeah,
awesome.
it's going to the next year.
That would be fantastic. Well, yeah, there we go. Definitely I'll consider that a promise that you'll be coming back on once Path to Yesterday is out there, and then we can chat more about it and everything, and hopefully get some sneak peeks at the next thing you'll be working on.
Yeah.
But that's all the time we have. If you would like to give your thoughts on the show, you can email us at theboxofficeshowpod@gmail.com. Our main title theme for the show is Sundown by Joseph McDade. And if you like the show, please give us 5 stars on whatever podcast app you're listening to, and be sure to tune in next week. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you once again, Tolu, for coming onto the show.